Welcome back. All right, so considering that today the Philadelphia Flyers have made a change behind the bench, and I haven't talked about the Flyers in a while, today's the day. So the Philadelphia Flyers, a team that's in a rebuild, who just had a coach exit the team that did not want to deal with the rebuild side of things, clearly. Or at the very least, he was getting frustrated with it and just tired of the day-to-day of a team that's out of the chase. And that can be tough. Now, the Flyers, the last time they made the playoffs was 2020. They were 41-21-7 at the time of the pause. They lost in the second round against the Islanders that year. It wasn't an awful series between them and the Islanders, but what stood out was the Flyers struggled to score. The coach that year was Alain Vigneault. The following season, a 56-game schedule, they were 25-23-8, did not make the playoffs, and that's been the case since 2020. No playoffs, of course. The following season, back to an 82-game schedule, 25-46-11 record. Following that, a 31-38-13 record, and last season, a 38-33-11 record, as they stayed in the hunt right till the very end. And then this year, they're 28-36-9. So still playing that stifling defensive style of game, shot blocking, and all of that. It brings offensive numbers down. So one thing that if you're a Flyers fan, you might be able to look forward to between now and the end of the season, some of these offensive numbers should go up. If Bradshaw comes in and implements a different style, or just says, hey, go out there, have fun, right? One example I would use is Marty St. Louis in Montreal. When he took over, it was, all right, we're not going to worry about the systems, go out, have fun, play your game. And it seemed to work. It seemed to work, it seemed to resonate, and Montreal's now built themselves up to where they could make the playoffs this year, and that's what the Flyers should be aspiring towards as well. So for Danny Briere and his the brain trust in charge of the Flyers, that's the goal, right? Now, they do have 3 first-round draft picks this year. They have the Oilers' first-rounder, the Colorado Avalanche first-rounder, and their own. Now, their own first-round draft pick has a 9.5% chance of being first, 9.5% chance of being second. It's most likely to be fifth. They have a 44.6% chance of drafting fifth. But those are good numbers for a team that could use another draft pick. And, of course, having those 2 later draft picks in the first round, maybe you package them to move up. It's something I talk about every year because it could happen again. It could. It doesn't generally, but it could. They also have 4 second-round draft picks this year. They have Calgary's, Anaheim's, Columbus's, and their own. So what's interesting here is Calgary, Anaheim, and Columbus, all 3 of those teams are currently below the playoff line. So those are in the first half of the second round. So what is that? 7 of the first 45 or around that draft picks, 48 draft picks, belonging to the Flyers. So we're going to see a lot of Flyer jerseys that first day of the draft, and on day 2, a lot of potential Flyers picks. And what they do with those, we shall see. Now, their power play has been bad, and it's not, I don't think it's as bad this year as that last year, but it's been bad, 13.7%. Penalty kill, 77.4%, which seems low, but it's still 17th, so it's still just around the middle of the league. They're scoring 2.7 goals per game, not enough, and they're allowing 3.44 goals against per game. That's too many. Now, when you look at shots, and this is something that stands out to me with Philly games, not a lot of shots either way. They're 26th in shots per game at 27 even. They are 7th, though, in shots against. They only allow 26.6 shots against per game. So, going back to my point about the style of play that Tortorella has, bringing in a new coach might open things up. We might see more shots against, but also should see more shots for if they open things up a bit. This is a team that's pretty good if they're leading. So when they're leading after 1, they're 12-4-6. It's not the best mark in the NHL, but it's not awful. If they're leading after 2, they're 17-2-5. But if they're trailing, it's a bit of a different story. 9-20-2 if they're trailing after the first. 6-30-1 if they're trailing after the second period. Blocked shots, it's a Tortorella coach team. So, of course, their first 17.49 blocked shots per game. Per 60 minutes. And then hits per 60 minutes, they're 18th in the National Hockey League at 20.74. I'm honestly surprised it's not higher in the hits category for them. They're 4th in giveaways, a number that I think's been inflated this year around the NHL. I feel like that if you as a player dump the puck in from center ice and then the defending team goes back and retrieves it, that counts as a giveaway. I think that's why giveaway numbers are really high. Heard speculation on that, and it makes sense to me, so I agree. In takeaways, they're 6th in the National Hockey League. So they're pretty good at getting the puck back when it's not theirs. And in giveaways, they're still 4th amongst the entire National Hockey League. So even if this is just dump and chase kind of, skews those numbers, they're still high in giveaways. So that's something they need to work on. But they need to work on a lot of things. Now, the line combinations don't necessarily matter a whole lot. And when you get a new coach, those can change. But looking at their lines, you can see why there's a lot of hope here. Forrester, 16 goals, 16 assists, 32 points in 72 games. Forrester's seen as a key two-way forward for them going, into the later 2020s and into the 2030s. Noah Cates, 69 games, 14 goals, 15 assists, 29 points. I like Cates. I think he's a good player. And Bobby Brink, 70 games, 11 goals, 12 assists, 23 points. I think Brink's capable of a lot more. So on that top line, I think Forrester can score more. I know Cates can score more, and so can Brink. The talent's there. Then you got Michkov, 71 games, 20 goals, 31 assists, 51 points. Maybe, under a new coach, Michkov's numbers go up, and then maybe he gets himself closer to that Calder, right? Couturier, 70 games, 12 goals, 25 assists, 37 points. I don't think Couturier will say it publicly, but I think with the issues that have been going back and forth between Couturier and Tortorella, which we haven't seen this year as much as last year, but Couturier is probably okay with the change behind the bench. Konechny, 73 games, 24 goals, 44 assists, 68 points. It's remarkable how prominent Konechny is in every Philadelphia game, and he's below a point per game. I don't think that'll continue. I think you'll see the scoring go up. Owen Tippett, 68 games, 19 goals, 18 assists, 37 points. Tippett at times has been snake bit this year, and yet he still has 19 goals. He could be a 30-goal scorer next season, absolutely. Paling, 59 games, 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points. Solid, hard-working forward. Pelche has had a bit of a tough adjustment coming over from Calgary. 3 assists in 16 games since joining the Flyers. And then on the fourth line, you got Nick Delorier. 1 assist in 23 games this season. He is more about the fisticuffs than about the goal scoring and assists and stuff. But Delorier at times in his career has been not too bad in that category. Abels has honestly impressed me as an older rookie at the NHL level. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points in 19 games. I think he's shown that you don't want to give up on your NHL dream. It could still happen. Lixell, 3 assists in 16 games for Lixell. And we'll see if he gets into some more games down the stretch and how he plays. At times, Lixell's looked good over his career. Then you get to the blue line. Cam York, 4 goals, 11 assists, 15 points in 58 games. I really thought York would be scoring more at this point in his career. But I've talked about this. We'll talk about it again a little bit here. I think the way this team has been coached has been part of why these numbers aren't higher. Sanheim, 7 goals, 21 assists, 28 points in 73 games. We know how good Sanheim is. Nick Seeler, 3 goals, 12 assists, 15 points in 68 games. Drysdale is one, too, that I think we'll see his offensive numbers come up. It is interesting, too, because looking at the power play, you could put together a pretty good power play with this team. You can have York on the first unit, Drysdale on the second unit, and you could put together enough good young players that it could be a dynamic power play, depending on whether or not the coaching change can make that happen. But Drysdale with just 19 points in 61 games, he's got talent to be way ahead there on that in terms of he should be nearer to 30 points, I would think. Zamula, 3 goals, 11 assists, 14 points in 54 games, and Emil Andre, 6 assists in 33 games. I've been glad to see Andre, getting into some games lately and playing all right. Goaltending. Goaltending is an issue. Now, Ersson did have that good stretch there. I'm not saying that Ersson can't be a good goaltender, but he's suited to be a backup. 19, 15, and 5 record, 882 save percentage. So, ideally, Ersson's the backup next year. And Fedotov, who has a $3.28 million cap hit next season as well, 5, 13, and 3 with an 877 save percentage. Fedotov, he's had some games where he's looked good, but not enough of them. And so I would think this offseason, we probably see Fedotov off the team. I don't know if they keep Kolosov either. I don't know that Kolosov showed enough at the NHL level to keep him around. So while the pickings are rather slim on the goaltending market, I do think Philadelphia is going to look for an upgrade there. And that may be part of what frustrated Tortorella. Maybe Tortorella was looking at this team on the ice, looking at the goaltending, looking at the lack of scoring and going, this is miserable. Maybe that's part of it. But the goaltending has to be fixed this offseason. This is a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a long time. So the idea of, well, we'll just quietly go through the rebuild. This is where you need to be doing the building part of said rebuild. So they're pending unrestricted free agents. Abels is pending UFA, and I think re-signing him is possible. Lixell, same thing. Either of them, they're not going to get a raise. They're going to get about the same money they're making now. Cal Peterson, who's been a buried contract, his contract expires this summer. Pending restricted free agents, Noah Cates, who's 1 year away from UFA status. So Cates is probably going to be pricey-ish, but do you give him a 2 or 3 year deal, knowing that his numbers are probably going to go up under a new coach? And do you take that chance that 2 or 3 years from now you're going to be paying a heck of a lot more for Noah Cates? Forrester is a pending RFA as well. You want him signed long-term. Pelche and York. Cam York needs to be signed long-term as well. So I'll be interested to see what kind of price point they're going to end up at and what Danny Briere is able to do. Because this is a team that could add this summer and could be a lot of fun to watch next season. Ristolainen, I wanted to mention as well. His contract's always discussed as, tradable, and maybe he's on the trade block. There was a lot of speculation. It didn't end up happening. He has a $5.1 million cap hit until 2027. As the salary cap goes up, that should make that contract easier to trade. Should. Not saying he gets traded. I'm just saying it should make it easier to trade should they decide they still want to do that. Incoming players, Oliver Bonk, a defenseman, is widely seen as their best prospect. And they've got a good young blue line in theory here anyways. This is not a bad blue line. That's the thing with the Flyers for me is it's not a bad team. Like, the goaltending tandem's had its struggles, but I don't think this is a bad team. I think that's a good top 9. Not necessarily great. Does it need a superstar? Yeah, it needs a superstar. But Michkov's getting towards that goal, I think. Maybe as soon as next season. And then Jet Luchenko. There were some eyebrows raised when they drafted him as early as they did. But he broke camp with the team. He played some games. And then he gets sent back down to juniors. Luchenko has a good chance to end up on the roster next season. And he absolutely could end up being one of their guys down the middle. Or maybe you start him on the wing. But he is listed as a center. And then there's Igor Zavragin. Zavragin? Yeah, Zavragin. There you go. Goaltender. And obviously, we've got Fedotov, we've got Kolosov, but it sounds like Zavragin is going to be... It sounds like he has a higher ceiling than either Kolosov or Fedotov. So, when he comes over, obviously, would be the question. But considering Michkov's able to come over, I do think that it gets overblown a little bit as to, whether or not the Russian player is going to be able to come over and play. So, maybe we see Igor join the team as soon as this coming training camp. I don't think he's signed to a contract at this point, though, so that's one of those things, right? But for the Philadelphia Flyers, the future's bright. I think the present can be better than what it's been. And with a change behind the bench and maybe a little bit more encouragement of offense. I mean, the block shots are going to drop off, I would think, now. But maybe a little bit of a change in strategy and new voice behind the bench. When they did the player poll, so the player poll, and I talked about this a couple months ago, and they asked players which coach they wouldn't want to play for in the National Hockey League. Tortorella was on that list. Tortorella was absolutely on that list. So with a change behind the bench, maybe it makes it a little easier to acquire free agents, a little easier to bring guys in. So that the next time a guy like Hathaway, who right now has been, I think he's out injured right now, because the injuries aren't really necessarily pertinent to this video, and how they're playing right now isn't as pertinent as just the long-term picture. But the next time a guy like a Hathaway signs, hopefully the question isn't, but why? Why would you want to play there? We all remember that, right? But I think it would be great if Philadelphia this summer could entice a free agent. I would think if they could get a top 6 forward via free agency, make the right moves at the draft table, bring in a couple of young guys, future could be pretty bright for the Flyers. But let me know your thoughts. Do you believe that the Flyers, with this move today, signals that they're going to start moving in the right direction and maybe be a little more fun to watch? Because as somebody who watches all the games, the Flyers are not fun to watch, have not been fun to watch for a couple of years. I am impressed with the work ethic. I am impressed with their ability to play the system, but it's not necessarily the most fun hockey to watch. And then the problem is, I've said this before, I'll say it again here, when the hockey's not fun to watch and the team's not very good, that just makes it worse. Because if you're rooting for a team that's losing, but they're still fun to watch, you can at least say, well, the effort's there and that was kind of a fun game to watch. Yeah, they lost. But when it's not a lot of fun to watch, you don't have that either. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.